Sage, as we kind of do a bit of an intro, and your picture's on the screen, and Saige Arcand, founder and CEO. I don't want to pronounce that incorrectly. You probably get this a lot from some people like me. How would you say inspired Iskwew?
Yeah, inspired iskwêw,
Oh, Iskwew.
personal. Yeah, so it's iskwêw, which is woman in Cree.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that means inspired Iskwew, personal development coaching, and inspired Iskwew designs.
Yes. Yes.
That's
You got it.
awesome. That's beautiful. So, and that word means woman in the Cree language,
Yes. Yeah.
which is awesome. Okay, so tell us about that. I mean, I for one, I'd just love to hear a little bit of your story. Like, tell us about you and how you ended up where you are today.
Yeah. So, my story, my journey. I have a similar story to a lot of, if you have listened to a lot of Indigenous people, we all kind of share some of the same stories in a way. Whereas there's a lot of trauma. I have both my paternal and maternal grandmothers are residential school survivors. So just the history on residential schools and the impacts on our people, and especially the intergenerational impacts are very prevalent, and we're still, battling those today. But it was really, I think I tell this story, it was really when I was about 12 years old when I realized what I really was meant to do. Not really what I thought. When you're 12, think about it, you're just like a pre-teenish, kind of know-it-all.
Lots of
You know,
hormones going, and
like, yes.
yeah.
So I was very rebellious because of my upbringing. I was born to a 16-year-old mother and an 18-year-old father. And again, like their mothers were both residential school survivors. So just knowing that, you know, they had been through a lot in their lives. So, the impacts kind of go down through generations. So my parents received those impacts. And unfortunately, they weren't always positive, but there weren't always negatives as well. And then as us kids, so me and my siblings, we're still working through those as well. So I was about 12 years old when my grandmother, who is my rock, my mentor, my teacher,
Is
she's
that Cookham?
Cookham, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Cookham.
yeah.
She was the one who mainly raised my brother and my brother who's about a year younger than me. She really, when she could, so she started her healing journey right before I was born. So she made it a point to seek out her healing so that she could, be a present mother and grandmother and learn all of that over again. Because when you're going through the impacts of trauma, you don't know those things. You don't know how to be a mom. You don't know how to be a grandmother. You don't, unless you learn, you have to unravel those behaviors that you were taught, which are mostly toxic and traumatic, and figure out how to, kind of become the person that you're meant to be, not who you were impacted to be, kind of thing. But she has a business where she works with Indigenous people across Canada. She was already doing this work right before I was born. I'm 30. So she, when I came, she was already that stable person in my life, which I'm very lucky and grateful to have. I always acknowledge her in the work that I do. So she told me when I was 12, she said, I'm doing this workshop working with teenagers your age. And I was rebellious. I was kind of like, had a lot of resentment towards my parents, like, why did I go through the things I did? Why weren't you guys ever there, kind of thing. So my grandma's like, if you come, you have to participate. And you can't just sit on the sidelines because I'm your cookum, like no entitlement there. You have to participate. So the really interesting thing about this story is everybody was sharing their stories. And we were in a sharing circle, which is what we tend to do a lot of in our practices, in our culture, and our traditions. And it came down, so I was kind of crossing my fingers, like, I don't want to share, like, I don't want to share my story. Like, I had a really, you know, ugly life. Well, that was my mentality, you know, like I just was like very not about sharing. I was very to myself. And so it just so happens this young lady starts sharing. They're all around my age, 12 to 14 years old.
Okay.
And so this young lady is sharing her story, then this young lady, and then this young lady. There's about 6 of them. It comes to me. And by the time the sharing came to me, I was just like in awe. I was like, my story is not nearly as bad as these young people, you know, like the things that they've been through, the things that they were talking about, like their traumas were like how could I was thinking in my head, I was 12, like how could I like think that my life is so bad, you know? I was just like, so I was kind of like upset with myself in that moment. And it was like that light bulb moment when it was like, I want to help these people, you know, I want to help uh youth like us. I want to help youth like these women. I want to help. So, you know, we're on our way home. I had a really great weekend that weekend. I feel like I opened up, I shared, and
Nice.
we're on our way home. And my grandma still tells this story. She's like, you were just creating your own workshop. You had it all written down, and you're in the back, and you're just like, this is what I'm going to do. So, you know, long story short, that's when I think and I look back, that's when my seeds were being planted. She was actually planting those seeds in me, you know, and I was at the time, of course, I didn't do that work until I became a young, you know, adult. But when I look back, I'm like, man, that was the moment. That was the moment I knew that I knew what I was meant to do. So that's a little bit of my story, like, and how I got to, you know, like working in the field of like healing, mental wellness, personal development, all of that area. Um, and you know, my grandma focuses more on trauma and healing, and I'm more you know, the upbeat, like the positive, working through traumas using more surface level tools, because I'm still working through mine as well still.
Yeah.
And in a few years, or who knows when, I'll be somewhat
It's great. Thank you for, there you go.
yeah.
You're good. Well, you know, number one, Saige, thank you for sharing that. And you know, it's amazing to hear that, you know, especially from, you know, 12 years old, and yet until now. So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges, you know, so you're 12 and now you shared, I mean, you know, you don't look 30, but you know, you said you're 30, and you have 2 daughters, and that's a big challenge, right? So
Yeah.
talk about some of that journey from, you know, 12-year-old girl who gets a dream to now a mom, who's doing it, who's living it, who's walking it out.
Yeah. So Uh, you know, like it's so hard for me to put my story as to that moment to this moment, because there's so much that happens, right? And I'm still learning how to like condense it into like when someone asks me, how did you get there? You know, because it's still so big to me and I'm still trying to figure out how to bring it together. But just to give, you know, some insight again, I didn't really start doing this type of work, working with youth and women and especially Indigenous people, until I was a young adult, so like in my 20s,
Yeah,
or I'd say when I was 20,
sure.
when I really got the opportunities to run my own workshops. Otherwise, you know, I would help my grandma here and there. So again, like the seeds again were being planted throughout the years. But when I started really taking the reins and driving and creating these workshops and these things that I wanted to do that I thought would help other people was when I was about 20. So I started off as a makeup artist. That's really how I started my journey into this field, this industry. And I started it, and I used it as makeup artistry was always that outlet for me as a young girl. I'd sit in front of the mirror and I would do my makeup, and it was just like that calming, you know, that way that I just get out of my head for a little bit, you know. It was that coping mechanism for me as a young girl who was experiencing trauma and other things, you know, just trying to make it get through your day and your life and stuff. So come 20 years old, I went into aesthetics, or sorry, 21. I went into aesthetics. I got my makeup artistry certificate, my aesthetic certificate, and then I quickly realized I was getting hired to do makeup at conferences, more so like Indigenous conferences around the city. And then I was like, as I was doing makeup, I felt like I was able to connect with these people and that I was working with. And it was so much more than makeup. It was literally, makeup was my tool to connect. It was my tool to get in the door, to be able to share some of my story and hear some of theirs and see how we can help each other, you know, do that exchange of like, just sharing, right? Because even just sharing your story is so powerful. You never know who you will inspire, or even just, you know, just kind of get them going, or just change their mood, or whatever it may be. But yeah, some of the challenges, like you said, I am a mother of two. I became a mother at 20. So that in itself was not really like a challenge, but it was more or less like, it was challenging in a way of wanting to do so much. But, you know, of course, when you're a new young mom, you're kind of still trying to figure yourself out and how you can balance even going to school like I did and being a young mom. I was lucky that I had established an amazing relationship with my mother at that time.
Okay.
And she was able to help me with my baby at that time. So I went to school, and she was only 8 months old when I went into aesthetics.
Okay.
Yeah. So just certain little, there was obviously challenges along the way, but it's more or less, you know, believing in myself and finding, you know, the people to help support you along the way, because without that, it's so hard, you know.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. So talk about, you know, a little bit, if you don't mind. I mean, for people who don't really understand, and we don't want to, like the history, and we understand some of that history with residential schools, but,
Mhm.
you know, because you do a lot of work in the area of self-esteem and worth and identity, you know,
Mhm.
just talk about, you know, what's happening with Indigenous peoples right now. And I think this is really important because, you know, I look at it through a couple of lenses. I think you know this about me. I've been privileged to work in on Indigenous nations in all four Western provinces, and I've been really blessed with how open, you know, they've welcomed me. You know, they've called me brother. They've you know, it's been wonderful to have that connection, but that doesn't mean I understand. You know, that doesn't mean that I get it. I think it just means that maybe they feel that I'm safe. But, you know, just to help people understand, you know, what's happening and what's going on, and also, and I love this about you, where's the hope? Because there's so much hope, isn't there? There's so many positive things going on.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I try to I tried to tread lightly in a sense as to speaking like on this specific topic. Um, just because, yeah, I may have worked in, you know, 25 or plus, probably more, 30 Indigenous nations across Alberta, and working with all different types of people, youth, women, men. And the one thing, in my opinion, that I have seen and I have experienced and I have related to, especially with them, is the sense of just like not feeling worthy enough, not feeling like um, like there's like sometimes it doesn't feel like there's a lot of hope, you know, or it's like our situations and our traumas and our experiences become so big that we're so clouded and we can't see through, you know. And it's really hard to um it's just really hard to see our dreams and see how, you know, how can we achieve. In the first place, I found working with some youth in the communities is some of them don't even want to dream because it's like I can't see myself getting there. And that was so sad to me because, you know, a lot of them are I again, like, I don't want to speak for everyone or every nation, or because I don't have that knowledge or anything. But some of the experiences that I've had with people is they don't have support systems, or they don't have like that mentor, or that teacher, or that rock who can even be that pillar for them to even like kind of peek their heads through those clouds that are clouding their, their dreams and their visions. um, which I was so lucky to have, which was my grandmother. Even though she was busy all the time and she may have not taken us as much as she would like to, she still instilled those things of you can do whatever you want, and I'm gonna be here for you, and I will support you, and you just let me know what you need of me, and I can do my best to help you, right? So I tried to be that person when I would meet those people who are feeling like, oh, I don't know, I don't have any, goals or dreams for myself, or my family, are all stuck in these cycles, these generational cycles. And it's like, how can you see yourself different when that's all you're surrounded by, right? So again, like, I was lucky to see my grandmother, the one person in my family who was healthy, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, well, she gave me that glimpse of like, I can be that healthy person too, and that's the thing. I when I go out there, I just want to just, I'm not there trying to like change them. And I'm just trying to instill a little bit of hope, like you mentioned. And yes, you can. And if you what can I do for you, or how can I be that person just to like let you see a little bit beyond those clouds, so you can see that dream or that vision just a little. And then part of my role, when I go into these communities, is sometimes I write reports, or sometimes I meet with, like if I'm working with a group of foster kids and they come into my workshop, I meet with their caseworker and I say, this is what I think, that maybe this is in my opinion, maybe have these resources available, or this is what he or she showed interest in. Or so I try to look beyond just the workshop, and how can there be more supports to help them move forward and continue to move forward.
Love
So
that. It's awesome. And you touched on something, and how you shared it, I think, was so simply and so naturally, and so thank you for that. But the research on trauma,
mhm,
it's been a lot of research on trauma, and one of the primary things that people identify over and over again is that no matter the trauma, the presence of one caring adult who's
mhm,
safe can make all the difference, right? That children are inherently incredibly resilient. And that's not to say they should be subject to trauma, but they are. That's the world we live in. And yet, loving the story, and I have another very good Indigenous friend who also has talked about her cookum and the impact, and just that one person, in spite of, in her case, lots of tragedy and hardship and adversity, and yet it's been a game changer, right? And so I love that you're looking to give that back. And so so let's talk a little bit about business. You also, on your journey, how we met is you became a certified coach. So
mhm.
you did your certified coach training in Edmonton, and I know you've done lots of other training as well. And so talk about some of the work that you do, in community, because you're doing, some personal development coaching, but also some design work, So tell us about that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I figured, I was working with youth and women especially, and I found myself, after doing makeup workshops, I found myself developing more bigger than just coming in and let's sit down and do your face. And it started to become like, let's embed let's embed some goal setting, let's embed some sharing, let's embed some um, what else do I do? I like affirmations and like just doing visioning exercises. And I but what I think about before I do these is what has helped me becoming a young mom
Yeah.
was the moment. I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but that was when I became a young mom at 20, well, it's not that young. My mom was 16. When I became a mom at 20,
Yeah.
I knew right then and there, I was like, things are going to be different. Things are not, she is not going to experience the things I went through. Like there was a point where I was in group home and I was in a couple foster homes, or kinship care, like with other family members and stuff. And when it's not your mom and your dad, you feel that when you're a kid, you know, and it's trauma. It impacts you. And I've worked to a point in my life where I just love my mom and dad so much, because like I have so much respect for them, because they weren't the way they were because they wanted to be that way. It's because of their past and their traumas and their experiences. And now they're such amazing, resilient, loving parents to my siblings and I. But my work became so much bigger. It became more about self-esteem, self-empowerment. Not only using makeup, I eventually actually, like, sometimes I don't even do makeup anymore. Like that's only if like certain communities or certain groups or they request that, which I still love. It's still a passion of mine, but it just became so much more deeper. And I always want them to leave feeling empowered and dreaming bigger, and having some tools. It's important for me to leave them with some tools that will help them to continue to move forward, and not just, okay, that was amazing workshop, see you later, you know. Like it's like, yeah. I'm still working on ways to, because most of my coaching is group coaching. It's like actual workshops. It's not online like this. I've never done this kind of coaching. I've actually done one-on-one, like very sparingly, but it's mainly like workshop style. And it just keeps evolving. I just find myself, I said, I got to invest in myself. And I seen the coaching, you know, like I believe in signs, the universe sending you signs and stuff. And one day this coaching, I can't even remember where I seen it, but it was kind of like, it was like in my face. And then I looked into it. I signed myself up. I paid for it out of my pocket. You know, I was like, I'm investing in myself so that I can, you know, learn and do better and be better and be able to help better, you know, like.
Love it.
Yeah. So I was really happy to be coached and learn from you, you know, very, very knowledgeable man. And I'm grateful for that.
Well, you know, your journey is just awesome. And so what are some of the things that you have learned along the way that keep you sane? You know what I mean? That keep you on track, you know?
Yeah. You know, like I think about, especially right now, and being in these times of self-isolation and all that, I think that's where I'm learning the most, because I was so on the go for how many years, like the past how many years, were just like, you know, I felt like I was constantly training or delivering workshops or learning. I was in school for a while, and, you know, like I just hardly give myself moments to just like sit and reflect and like, how are you feeling? And I know that's such an important and vital piece of, like, you know, especially the field we're in, right? Is like, you give so much and you got to be able to take your own advice sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
So some of the ways that I find just being with myself right now and having some quiet, like I rarely watch TV, which to me has actually been really helpful. I find I journal so much. Like I've journaled from like ever since I can remember. Like, but when I first started journaling, it was more or less journaling feelings and you know, thoughts, but now I more or less journal around like dream journaling, like how I want to feel, and what are the kinds of things that I want to attain, and what is the life I you know, I dream to have. And it really is what I'm living now. I'm really grateful, and of course I keep wanting to climb as much as I can and learn and soak in all the knowledge as I can and give back. But yeah, I think those are my main ways. And especially smudging for me.
Yeah.
Smudging and prayer and just I'm so lucky. My dad just finished building a sweat lodge on his property. So he was just telling
Okay.
me, he's like,
Okay.
anytime, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, yes, because ceremony is so, it's just that thing that just fills my heart. And I'm very lucky to have that as well. Because, a lot of our people too actually are disconnected from that, especially who grow up in the cities or who are displaced from their families. They sometimes they don't even know at all any connection to culture, and it's just really sad. And I try to share little things without being too in their face. I try to share like some smudging, or
Yeah.
like these are the things that I do, like even just prayer. And so yeah,
Great.
those are the things.
No, I love that, and I think it's about cultural connection and staying close to the things that nourish your soul, and I
Yes.
think that's
Yeah.
so important. I love what you're saying about that the COVID isolation, and there's challenges with it, but it's also there's good things about taking advantage of the situation and
Yeah.
being a person who's leaning in, not having to be so public for a little while and out there in the community, but really just getting a little bit quiet. And I think that there's seasons that's important.
Definitely. Yes.
So what challenges do you have? Like what are some of the struggles that you kind of would be facing right now, and sort of maybe COVID or maybe not, just in general.
Well, yeah, I think I'm experiencing a lot of the feelings of, like freedom. Like it feels like almost like a sense of your freedom is a little bit restricted. And I'm such a person that even with my baby who's 10 months old, we would just go to the mall just to put her in her stroller and just walk.
Hmm.
Like I wasn't shopping all the time, I swear. But like it was just that one thing that I just kind of get out of the house and just go walk. And I mean, now, yeah, we can walk outside and stuff, but of course that was through winter, right? So it was just, I don't know, it became like I'm gonna go get a nice jugo juice and walk. My baby loves her stroller. Well, she did. She's not as fond as it now, but I think also being here at home, um, and trying to be like help my older daughter with school has been very challenging for me.
Yeah.
Very. Um, I I openly admit that I was never really great in school. Like I struggled in school like all my life,
Yeah.
but actually enjoy going to school nowadays as an adult, which is funny. But yeah, it's been really challenging just trying to, I guess, balance the things that I really want to do. Like I really want to do more developing. And I kind of do here and there. I do. I've also become more open to, well, I know I'm not going to be able to write a whole page of ideas or development today. So I'll do like a couple ideas here and there, and just be okay with that. And not being so hard on yourself. And because yeah, I do, that's a challenge. I'm now being faced with, you gotta constantly cook, clean, be teacher, on top of course being a mom and being a business owner. And I design clothing as well. So when can I do that is kind of like my challenge right
Yeah.
lately. But
Yeah.
I find ways, I do, and it's just a matter of just embracing that if it's 15 minutes here instead of where it used to be, a couple hours because Avon was at school. And like
Yeah.
it's okay. Like we're making it work, and we're navigating this as best we can. So
Absolutely. And I love that because, it is what it is. And you've got to be gentle
mhm.
with yourself. Right. And I find that if you're not, your kids sometimes can feel that,
Yes.
and we're maybe frustrated or angry. And it's not that we're angry at them, but it's
Hmm.
coming out a little bit. So thanks for sharing that. One of the things that, I'd love to ask you about is, there are a lot of folks who follow this program, and we've had people on here who run restaurants and who run breweries, and then others who do more sort of business coaching or life coaching. And the simple fact is, for a lot of people, COVID has changed
Mhm.
how they're thinking about business, right? And you can imagine if you, I don't know, have a restaurant, how that would impact versus
Yes.
doing some of the stuff that I do. But we're all kind of in the same storm, though
Mhm.
not all in the same boat. That seems to be kind of what people are saying. And so,
Mhm.
what are some strategies that are working for you in business right now to, at least stay in touch with your clients and stay connected and that kind of thing?
Well, I've been trying to use social media. Social media is like I probably the number one tool that I have at my fingertips that I'm able to stay connected. And mostly I just try to, even if it's sharing a positive message a day, or just trying to do that type of way of connecting and staying in touch. And I guess I find, yeah, I find like that's like my biggest tool right now. Honestly, I
Yeah.
don't really use much else. Like I said, I'm pretty new to this format, like the
Yeah.
webinar. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be great if I just kind of, indulge in it a little bit more, which I might.
Well, and we're all different, aren't we? Right. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting take. So, what are some of the things, just as we come for a little conclusion? What are some of the things that you're most excited about when you think about the future?
Well, I feel like I'm a very optimistic person, and I'm always excited about the future.
Yeah.
um, and what most excites me is, I am really trying to be, uh, yeah, optimistic about this time that we have right now, and trying to utilize this time the best I can to develop more of my business and the services that I want to offer, and make the workshops, you know, bigger and better. And I'm constantly asking, especially social media. I ask Facebook questions all the time if you have me on Facebook. But I'm constantly looking for real feedback from like real people. What type of personal development do you want? Instead of me assuming I know, because I don't know what I can think I know what everyone wants and needs. But I love to hear from youth. I love to hear from women and men. I love to hear from everybody, and I take that in, and I think about it, and I try to um, create and develop things that are, what people are looking for, and what skills do I have that I can offer, and not do something that's out of my skill set, or maybe I need to pick up another training or something to, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
I'm really trying to use this time specifically for just growing and learning, and I'm going back to university in the fall.
Awesome.
So I'm really excited about that, just to be in a learning environment again. And I will always build my business and continue doing
Yeah.
the work I love, because I've done it with other jobs before. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little bit of, a glimpse into what I'm excited about. But
That's awesome. That's awesome. And, there's nothing like, keeping yourself motivated by continually setting those goals, right? And
yeah.
so good for you. So just, if somebody is watching, and I'm sure many are, there's a lot of positive comments here. I think you're inspiring a lot of people. So that's great. Tell me, how can somebody get in touch with you or learn more about you, follow you on social media?
Yeah, so I have my personal Facebook, which is my name, Saige Arcand, but I also have more of my personal development and my business Facebook and Instagram, which is Inspired Iskwew Coaching and Inspired Iskwew Designs. So you can reach me. I'm really available on social media. Got to get with the times. I'm very present on there, and I feel like it's something that I find feeds feeds my soul in a good way, and I know when to like kind of like shut it down
Yeah.
and to not, if there's certain things on there that I don't want to see, I'll hide that. But yeah,
Yeah.
on social media, I'm there, and feel free to for sure message me. I'm pretty good at responding to messages, and yeah, I'd love to connect with anyone who would want to, talk or connect.
No,
Yeah.
that's great. And so I put the name in the chat box, and I'm sure Cynthia will get it onto our Facebook as well on the live feed there, Inspired Iskwew Coaching on Facebook or Instagram. And, honestly, Sage, I think that, COVID, again, as much as it's been a challenge, I think it creates opportunity. I think even for you, depending on, how long the sort of the lockdown goes and public gatherings and things like that, there's so much opportunity for some of the work that you do probably to carry on in forms like this. And it's
Mhm.
not as intimate, it's not as connecting, but it certainly is better than the alternative, which I think is people not getting your positivity and the healing that you can offer. And I think that's really important. I really believe this, as a Canadian, that Indigenous people are together. We have such a great future. I know that, the media likes to put a lot of emphasis on the stuff that's not working. And
Mhm.
listen, we got to focus on that, and we've got to spend time addressing those issues. But over and over again, I get to deal with Indigenous youth, and I'll say 40 and under, and even older, who are so hopeful, and they're so excited about the future. That doesn't mean
Mhm.
that everything is perfect, but it means that they look to the future, and they know that they can make a difference. And I think it's because of the great work of people like you. And so thank you for doing what you're doing. Don't stop, keep doing it, and keep educating people like me, so that we can, do our part, because I think we all have a part to play, either to support or to use our voice or whatever that is, and help us so that together we can build a better country, a better community, right?
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate these opportunities, and I'm constantly, trying to surround myself with, uplifting and inspiring people, and you're one of them. So thank you for being one of those people that I can look to for that. So I'm really, I'm really grateful, and I hope everyone just tries to make the best of the situations and reach out if it feels heavy. And yeah, so thank you again.
Hey, thank you so much, and
Thank you.
and thanks, Sage, and for sure we're going to keep in touch. So I'll just share my screen again just for a moment, and as you all know, we have been talking about business resilience, and thank you, Sage, for sharing that today, because I think it's so important. And at the end of the day, what's this about for me? Well, it's about support. It's about saying, how can we make a difference, and I know it's through conversations like today. And there's no doubt that Sage's story has impacted people. So please do, reach out to her, and please share this video, share these resources. Sage, we will post this on YouTube, and I'll send you a link after. If you want to do something with that, please feel free to. Next week in our Business Resilience Now, we've got a couple of other special guests who are going to be joining us, and you can see their picture on the screen. Roy and Tiffany Mitten, and they are, based out of Red Deer, and they have quite a story, and I'm not going to share too much, but they have a business and a work, a practice around thriving families, and let's just say that it has a lot to do with domestic violence. And domestic violence, one of my big concerns with COVID and with the lockdown, has been obviously the impact on things like domestic violence, because where that thrives is in the dark, and if people are forced to be home and they're not really out, then, and the research is already telling us that domestic violence has gone up. There's been a number of women and girls who've been murdered, and children, in Canada. And so, Roy and Tiff, they devote their lives to that. and they really work on both sides, you know, both with women and with men. You know, you can't just, if you want to solve domestic violence, you can't just work with the victims of it. You have to work with the perpetrators as well. And, you know, it's a very real to me. Some of you know my story and grew up in a situation like that. And so they're awesome. You're going to enjoy them. So please do sign up for that. And if you're, you know, interested again in reaching out to Saige, please do that. And you know this, at any time, any of you watching, if you're looking for some support, feel free to reach out. I know you know how to get a hold of me. And, you know, this isn't about charging people or making money. This is just about how can we help. And so love to get on a support call with any one of you at any time, just to offer what I can to help you get through this and to, you know, pivot and transition through this. And so once again, Saige, thank you so much.
Thank
And any final nuggets of wisdom?
you. Oh gosh. You know, just again, we're, you know, on this time together, and just be easy on yourself, be gentle. We're navigating it the best we can. You know, we have our good days and we have our bad days, and it's all making us the person we are and we need to be, right? So yeah, and I just hope everyone has a good day, and I don't have anything else to
That's
say.
just awesome. I love it. It's, you know, there's value in the feeling, right? And in the energy that's connected to that. And so thank you, Saige. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And again, we'll see you right here next week, you know, 11:45 a.m. Thursday. Roy and Tiffany Mint, we're going to hear their story and what they're doing to be business resilient through this. So again, thanks everybody. And thank you, Saige. We'll stay in touch.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
See
Bye-bye.
ya.